Let's talk about one of my biggest pet peeves today. So one of the things that drives me crazy is when people speak on attachment and they do not differentiate between the two different types of avoidant attachment, and they just refer to avoidant attachment. And so if you listen to someone or you follow someone or you read books on people who truly really know a lot about attachment, they will definitely distinguish between the two different types of avoidance. Leslie Wells, connection coach here. I help individuals heal, thrive, and improve their romantic relationships by looking at things through an attachment lens. I would be doing such a disservice to my clients if I did not differentiate between the different types of avoidance and let them know which category that they fall into, because they both have different traumas, different childhood backgrounds, they have different core needs, they have different wounds, different triggers. They are drastically different. So there are two types of avoidance. So when people just say avoidant attachment, like red flag right there. The two different types are the fearful avoidant and the dismissive avoidant. So going back to their childhoods, the fearful avoidant usually grows up in a home full of chaos, a lot of times unpredictability, a lot of times trauma. And so they learned very early on that people were not able to show up well for them. It could be an instance of a parent who had substance abuse, maybe some mental health issues, maybe there was a divorce that was really bitter, a lot of fighting, any kind of abuse, whether it was verbal, physical, sexual, whatever it is. But they grew up in homes where they quickly learned that relationships are unsafe, love is unsafe, and the people that are supposed to look out for you cannot be trusted and are not safe. So as a child, they recognized early the parent should be the person I can count on that will take care of me and show up for me. And because they can't, they have betrayed me. They've betrayed my trust. They've betrayed my safety. So therefore, they carry around with them the core wounds of lack of safety, of feeling like everyone is going to betray them because they can't show up well for them. They're always looking for someone to break their trust, to not show up well for them, for the other shoe to drop, for the next bad thing to come from around the corner. You don't necessarily have that same trauma with the dismissive avoidant background in their childhood. So they were just brought up emotionally, or essentially without emotional attunement. So they were pretty much emotionally neglected. So the parents may have shown up well for them when it came to their physical needs. They may have taken them to their sporting events, showed up to school events, helped them with their homework, really helped them to achieve and succeed and sort of push to be their best self. They may have, packed their lunches and dropped them off at all their friends' houses and done all of the things in that regard, but they just didn't talk about feelings or acknowledge the child's feelings. So the child grows up without understanding how to process and identify their own feelings and this inner sense of shame because they have these big feelings. So a child will bring a parent a big feeling, whether it's a toddler that's having a temper tantrum, a younger, adolescent that maybe has had a breakup, or maybe they've just fallen or they've gotten hurt on the soccer field. But they bring those emotions to their parents, who essentially punishes them. Oh, quit crying or I'm going to give you something to cry about. Shuts them down. Oh, you're fine. Just get back up and kick the ball. You're okay. You don't need to cry. Or makes them feel like something's wrong with them for having big feelings. What are you doing? Nobody else makes a big scene like this. So the child learns to have shame around experiencing their big feelings. And then they look at the people around them who are not modeling any emotions at all. And they're like, oh, well, they don't have those feelings and I do. So there must be something wrong with me. Or they come to the conclusion or the conclusion that I have these big feelings and nobody's able to help them with me. So what's inherently wrong with me that I can't get this need met and cannot deal with what's going on inside of me? So the trick that they learn as a child is the only tool that they have, which is to suppress those emotions, put them in a box, compartmentalize them, and distract from them, usually through play as a child. So their core wound is one of defectiveness. I'm inherently broken, something is wrong with me, and they are overwhelmed by emotion. So a couple of differences here. The fearful avoidant will use activating measures in relationships. They will use activating techniques, which means that they try to lean in and close the distance in the relationship. Whereas the dismissive avoidant typically will use deactivating measures, which means that they will actually create distance to find their place of safety. So the fearful avoidant grows up in adult relationships deeply wanting connection, but they are also afraid of it. So once they find that they're invested and they really are craving that connection, then they will then get scared and then pull away because they're afraid of being betrayed or being let down. The dismissive avoidant is really quickly triggered by that connection. So they actually feel very uncomfortable with that connection, while the fearful avoidant actually craves it. So as soon as they start getting connection, they will start to pull away and slowly and gradually withdraw. Now, if there's a withdrawal from a fearful avoidant, it is not slow and gradual. They have hit their wall, they are furious or hopeless, or they feel like there's nothing else that can be done. And then it's like a hard shutdown versus that gradual one of the dismissive avoidant. So the fearful avoidant is triggered by not feeling seen, heard, and understood, by feeling like there's any type of betrayal, like they're not being cherished and valued. There's a lot of resentment a lot of times because they will become people pleasers or fixers, and then resentment builds up around that. They also are so well in tune to other people that they will pick up on what people need before they need it. So when they don't get that in response, they can sometimes see that as being disvalued or underappreciated, and then they can blow up with reactivity. So the dismissive avoidant typically does not blow up. They typically will come up with defensiveness every now and then if you bring them a conflict or feedback that they don't like, but they typically shut down and try to do anything to avoid conflict. Conflict, intimacy, closeness, and connection are triggers for them. So when you give them one of their core needs is peace and harmony, whereas the fearful avoidant longs to be seen, heard, and understood. The dismissive avoidant does not want to be seen deeply because they feel like they're inherently defective. So what they do is they keep people at arm's length. The fearful avoidant will also keep people at arm's length, but they desire that connection, where the dismissive avoidant is triggered by that connection. The dismissive avoidant uses very predictable tactics over and over again. Withdrawal, shut down, a little bit of defensiveness. Their internal dialogue is so predictable. I'm a failure. I'm never going to get it right. I'm going to miss the mark. This relationship is doomed. I'm not meant for relationships. The fearful avoidant, however, will display symptoms of both, not symptoms, but they will either go into their avoidant or anxious. They have both ends of the spectrum. And so they are very, very unpredictable. They can pull out a wide variance of behaviors, anything from like extreme reactivity to lashing out with hurtful, harmful words. And they have reasons for doing this that are subconscious. And then also using the same tactics as the dismissive avoidant when they swing into their avoidance. So when they get to the position of I feel helpless and hopeless and I'm not being heard and nothing's working and there's nothing else I can do, they'll go into that shutdown and sometimes a freeze. So the responses of the trauma responses of a fearful avoidant are all of the trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Whereas the dismissive avoidant typically will go into flight or a freeze response. And the internal dialogue of a fearful avoidant is so much different than a dismissive avoidant. The dismissive avoidance dialogue is essentially like, I'm never going to get this right. I'm a failure. I'm inherently broken. And if you believe that you're inherently broken, then the next thought subconsciously is, why even try? If I'm broken, I'm never going to get it right. Whereas the dialogue of a fearful avoidant is, I can just try harder. I need to earn my worth. Maybe I need to do better. Maybe I need to fix here. They go into this control where they sort of manage the emotions of everyone around them and manage the circumstances to try to regain a sense of safety. Whereas a dismissive avoidant just sort of throws up their hands and quits and distracts. They throw themselves into hobbies or work or something to distract from what they don't feel like they can control. And they prefer a lot of space. So they are really afraid of losing their autonomy and independence in a relationship. So they like a lot of space in a relationship, which is why their partner usually feels underappreciated and deprioritized. The fearful avoidant really wants to be seen and does not like space. Space feels uncomfortable and unsafe to them. In fact, too much space and lack of connection can start to feel like a betrayal to the fearful avoidant. The fearful avoidant is a very, very deep feeler, whereas the dismissive avoidant doesn't really feel much. As soon as those feelings come up, they shove them down and suppress and try to distract from those feelings. The fearful avoidant is extremely self-reflective. They will take something, over-intellectualize it. They are super hyper-vigilant, very aware of everything. The dismissive avoidant has emotional blinders on. They were emotionally neglected, therefore they do the same thing to their partner. Fearful avoidants really tend to ruminate and get stuck in their head, whereas dismissive avoidants, again, they don't get stuck in their head. They don't get stuck in their body. They just sort of distract from all of it. So as you can see, there are huge differences between the two. So you cannot just lump all avoidants into one category. If you think that you might be avoidant and you want to figure out which one you are or where your attachment style is, then reach out to me. I do one-on-one coaching.